Well, Josh, thank you very much for taking time out of your Monday evening to connect with me and chat with me about your ApplyPass Platinum coaching experience.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I guess to kick things off here, Josh, if you want to, yeah, just talk us all through kind of what you were up to and doing and, a bit about your background before you started working with us in the ApplyPass Platinum coaching.
Yeah, sure. Um, my background is probably um, not not very typical among people applying to software jobs. Um, I came from academia. Um, I got a PhD in physics uh, with a focus on quantum physics, which led me to quantum computing. So coming out of grad school, like 3.5 years ago in May of 22, I found this quantum computing firm that offered me a job immediately out of grad school, um, and so that involved a lot of it involved some coding in Python, um, not really anything production level. So things, typical things that software engineers know, like, software engineering best practices and uh, just how things work in a production environment. I just didn't really have experience with that. Working at this company, I thought that the skills that I would learn would be like, honing my quantum computing and quantum algorithms skills and knowledge. But it turned out to be more, um, the skill that I developed most was machine learning and AI, building and training neural networks, with like a little bit of quantum computing sprinkled in. So that role wasn't really what I expected, um, but it got me very interested in machine learning and AI. Um, and so when it came time to leave that company, um, for reasons that we may or may not get into, um, uh, I wanted to look for a job in machine learning and AI, and I was struggling because, um, I like I said, I didn't really have the experience necessary for those types of jobs, um, uh, or the experience I thought was necessary. Um, and I also I didn't really understand the interview process and what is expected, and kind of what the bar is for, um, um, you know, the strength of a candidate, um, and uh, what kinds of things interviewers look for. Um, uh, so coming from more of an academic, um, sort of less typical background was sort of giving me problems. So like, before I connected with you, um, I had been kind of applying to jobs for the better part of a year. I'd had a few interviews, nothing really was sticking. Um,
You want to share like
so
how many jobs or like how many interviews that
uh, it was like a handful of interviews, maybe five. I was mostly applying to um, other quantum computing jobs. At this point, I hadn't really fully decided to transition into machine learning and AI. So I was applying to sort of a mix of quantum computing and machine learning AI jobs, but majority quantum computing jobs. And that was the majority of those. I probably did like four interviews with quantum computing companies and probably one interview with some AI startup that I can't even remember, but I know it happened. Um, and yeah, so it was, not much was happening. I wasn't making much progress, and yeah, that was getting kind of frustrating.
and yeah, you want to talk maybe about how I guess we found you and sort of the discussion from there and ultimately what made you decide to start working with us.
Yeah, sure. So, it's actually kind of funny. I had put my I had set my LinkedIn to say open to work, but only to recruiters. Because I didn't want my current employer to find out that I was looking for work, but I wanted to be visible to recruiters. So I started getting a bunch of LinkedIn messages and emails from recruiters, and the experience with these third party recruiters and headhunters and whatever was always the same. It was they would I'd have one conversation with them. They'd look at my resume, they'd either call me or we'd have a Zoom chat or something, and they'd say, you're a great candidate. These companies would, some of the companies I'm working with would love to have you. Um, I'm gonna send your information to um, some of these companies that I'm working with, and we'll be in touch. Um, and then I would never hear from them again. And that happened. I mean, at least with at least like 10 different recruiters that I talked to, in the months leading up to when I connected with you. Um, and the way that I found out about you guys was I received an email um, asking if I was interested in this program, and I, I didn't I didn't look too much into it. I assumed this was another email from a third party recruiter. And so I responded saying exactly what I just said to you. Like, thanks, but my experience with recruiters has been, you know, less than
Optimal.
stellar. And like, how are you guys going to be different? And the response I got was, oh, we're not a recruiting agency. We are something different. Um, and they explained how it works. And I think this was Beatrice I was talking to.
Yep.
Um, and then she asked me if I wanted to meet on Zoom to talk about it a little more. Um, and yeah, so then we met, and she explained to me how the program works. Um, and uh, yeah, so I was interested. And well, as you remember, I was pretty skeptical. It sort of felt like too good to be true. Like the way that the program was described to me, it's approximately 3 months. You have one-on-one coaching, resume prep and LinkedIn prep, and then this auto apply tool that fires off applications while you're doing nothing. And then in these 3 months you're gonna get a ton of interviews, and then you're gonna land a job. um, and so my skepticism sort of stemmed from, well, okay, in 3 months what's really going to change about my profile? Like i I didn't really have a portfolio of work to show off. The only the coding work that I did at my previous role was all in private repos, and like I said, it wasn't really production level stuff. Like it wouldn't be something that I would that would there was never any thought about scaling to a large number of users, or like actual anything like that. And so like I didn't feel equipped um for these types of interviews and these types of roles. um and also just because there's just so much that I don't know. Like I knew one language, I knew Python. That's still the case, although that's starting to change. Um, and so I just have these huge gaps in my knowledge where that are just going to be very obvious to interviewers. So I was skeptical. I said, what, in 3 months, like how's this gonna, what's gonna happen that's gonna allow me to land a job in that amount of time? Because obviously it's not, obviously 3 months from now I'm not going to have this like expert portfolio of work to interviewers. And the response from you was, well, the reason you're struggling is because you don't know how to play the game, and in these 3 months you're going to learn how to play the game, and it's going to and you're going to get good at it by reps. um, you're going to get a ton of interviews because this we're going to fix up your resume and LinkedIn and turn on this auto apply tool. And then you're going to start getting a lot of attention from the companies you're interested in, and you're going to do a ton of interviews. You're going to suck at it at first. That was completely true. But then you're gonna learn what to say, what not to say, how to frame your experience, how to sell yourself and your skills. Um, and then eventually, if you do enough of these, something will stick. And that's what happened. But yeah, I was super skeptical because obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably have connected with David or somebody else at ApplyPass, and you probably know the price that you're thinking about paying for this program. And I was concerned, like if my skepticism is well founded, then there's a chance that I pay for these services and I come out with no job offer, and then like where am I at that point? So I was very skeptical. But the other thing that you said to me was that you so like you ApplyPass had reached out to me, right? It was not like I came along looking for these services. um and what you said was that the people that you reach out to are are picked based on certain criteria. If you're going to bring people into the program, you want those to be people who you think have a high chance of succeeding. And given that you've worked with hundreds, thousands of engineers,
Thousands at this point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, um, y- you have a pretty good sense for, when you look at somebody's profile and when you talk to them, how hireable is this person? How likely is this person to find a job? And,
And
if
find a
you,
job quickly too, right? Because that's what
right,
ultimately I need to have happen so that you'll have this
it,
conversation with me. Yes.
exactly. Because right, it's in your best interest that I get a job, because then your success rate, your apply passes reputation is now is good, right?
Yep.
Everybody who's thinking about joining this program, or at least I did, you look up the company and you look at what people say, and if there's a lot of if there's a subreddit about like don't go to this company, it doesn't work, then that's bad for you, right? So the
Yep.
people that you bring into the program, like you choose them carefully.
Yep.
And you wouldn't have reached out to me if you didn't think that I had a very good chance of succeeding through this program. And I thought about that and I was like, you know what, that's kind of a good point. Uh, and that to me, that was actually pretty convincing. If it's in your best interest that I succeed, then uh, I think that's good for me. Um, so um, yeah, so I decided to go for it, and I guess maybe the next thing we'll discuss is what happened after that.
Yeah. So you want to talk. So ultimately, then you decided, like, all right, I'll start working with these folks that reached out to me from the internet. Sort of know them, sort of don't, but they seem like they believe in me, which we did, and we do. And so you decided to sign up, Josh. And then, yeah, what happened after we started to work together? You want to kind of like break down the steps in the process?
Yeah. So okay, right. So the goal eventually is to turn on this auto apply feature. It's applying to 50, 100 jobs a day, sending out your resume, and waiting for responses about interviews. But before that happens, you want to have everything that the the interviewers will see look good, right? So that includes your resume and LinkedIn, essentially. So we spent 2 or 3 weeks, I think, um, overhauling my resume and my LinkedIn. So my resume was like garbage, which I didn't even realize how bad it was. There's no details about anything, super vague, uh, 2 columns for some reason, because I used some template that I found,
That they
which
told
is
you
a
was
bad.
the best resume template ever, I'm sure, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think I may have found it on Overleaf and made it in LaTeX, but it was not good. And so yeah, the first thing we did was totally redo the resume. So you asked me for a bunch of details about the things that I did at each role, the skills that I developed at each role, the tech that I was using, and yeah, just all of the detail that I could think of, and certain like quantifiable accomplishments. So like if there's a project that I did where, you know, if there's any numbers specific numbers that I can put to it, like, improved whatever by whatever percent, or like, things like that. Even if they are a stretch, or the number is sort of uh, um, approximate.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, so because those types of details are good to include, and they make you look more like you know what you're doing.
More like you
Um,
deliver results and you add value to the places you go. But yeah.
right. Um, so so my resume looked completely different after we fixed it up. Um, and then we did my LinkedIn, which involves, a lot of the same stuff, putting details for all your roles, doing things like, and you guys have this, this video. So one of the first things you did was make me watch this video about, how does LinkedIn work, and how do you take advantage of the way that profiles are ranked when recruiters are looking for candidates. So things like adding high traffic links. Like, so if you work for a company and the company website is a high traffic link, just put, in the role, put that link in there. The university you went to, if it's a big university, put the homepage of the university there, right? Like, high traffic links make your profile rank higher. Things like maxing out the skills. I think you get like 25 skills or something like that. Max those out, right? Put keywords all over it. So these two things that we did, the resume and the LinkedIn, these were like hugely beneficial for this process. I hadn't realized how how bad my resume and LinkedIn both were. So that was the first step. And then once those things were ready to show, then we turn on I fill out a profile on ApplyPass, which consists of your resume information, but also a bunch of stuff about you and what jobs you're looking for, so that it knows what to scrape from what jobs to match you with when it scrapes these applicant tracking services. So we turn on I fill out my profile, we turn on the auto apply tool, and now every day my inbox gets 50 to 100 thank you for your application emails. And I'm not doing anything. This is a super valuable and super helpful tool. um, it just felt like magic. um, and so I'm scrolling through all these messages, all these thank you for applying applications, and I'm learning what companies I applied for. I'm learning about a bunch of new companies because I apparently applied to them, right? So that was interesting, and fun and easy. um, so right, so then I start getting interviews, which okay, one thing I remember very clearly was when you asked me in one of these initial conversations before we started, you asked me like, how many interviews have you had over the last year? You've already looked at my profile and talked to me, and you asked me how many interviews, and I said, like, I don't know, 4 or 5, and you just kind of laughed and said, okay, Josh, you have no idea what's about to happen. And you were right, I had no idea. I had heard, I had read about, and you and Beatrice had told me about people getting um, an interview a day at least. And I was like, yeah, right. So then over the next 3 months, I averaged like 2 interviews a day. It was insane. It was grueling. It was probably the hardest I've worked, other than the last few months of my PhD, for 3 continuous months. Um, so each of these interviews involves a lot of studying. You have to go learn about the company, prepare questions, read some material to get familiar with what they do, whatever. And if it's 2 of these a day, that's like a second full-time job. So it was not easy. But I started to realize that, okay, if these interviews are going to come in at this rate and I put in the work, um, just doing these numbers, um, eventually something has to happen, right? Um, so yeah, so for those few months doing those interviews, the way it worked was uh, I would record my interviews. So we you install OBS so you can record your screen, um, and if there was an interview that I wanted you to review and give me feedback on, I would tell you. They all get uploaded to a shared drive folder so you can see them. Um, and yeah, uh, so we did a lot of sessions where we just go over the transcript of an interview that I had, and you tell me, okay, this is a mistake, or here you need to provide more details, call out the tech that you used, or uh, you know helpful feedback about how to um, interview well. Um, and yeah, so that went on for a few months until it started to look like I was actually making progress. And the indicator of that was I started reaching final rounds. So these first couple of months, I did a ton of recruiter screens, maybe got to the second round, maybe a technical interview. And then as soon as there was any coding or system design, I would fail and not progress. But doing so many of these, hundreds of these things, I just got more fit and just got better at these things. And even when there was something I didn't know, I learned how to sort of um,
Learn it well enough to
not
kind of
avoid it.
talk about it, so you didn't just
Yeah,
completely have nothing to say. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I sort of learned how to be nimble in an interview, and sort of save myself when I didn't know something, by saying something else that is sensible, or ask a good question, or sort of spill what I do know in order to demonstrate some related knowledge. I got pretty good at that stuff. Um, uh, but yeah, after after failing a few, or not getting an offer on a few final rounds, um, I finally got one. And so another thing that you said to me was, when I started reaching these final round interviews, you said, okay, Josh, in my experience, uh, uh, what was it, like 1 out of 4 final rounds resulted in
Or one
offer?
of five, something like that, converts to an
Yeah.
offer. Yep.
So I think it was literally my fifth final round that led to an offer. Um, and yeah, so I guess that's kind of the high level, you know way it works. um I guess there's more details we can dive into if
We did some work too on like your narrative as well, right? Like
oh,
after,
right.
because
Yes.
you had to
Yeah,
learn
okay,
how to talk about yourself in a more
yeah, yeah,
compelling way.
yes, yeah. So okay, right, so in addition to fixing up the resume and the LinkedIn and spending a couple weeks on that before we turn on the auto apply, um right, I can't remember if it was right after or right before we turned on the auto apply tool. We did a few sessions where um we kind of write some scripts for certain common questions. So like, for at the beginning of an interview, there's always a, tell me about yourself, or like, tell me about your background or your experience or whatever, just general, introduce yourself. Um, and that's where they're going to form their impression of you. Um, and so that needs to be um, good. It needs to be practiced and not.
Strategic. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And you want to be information dense. You don't want to be rambling without really giving them relevant information. And so that's not something that you want to just be improvising every time. You want to have it ready to go. Um, so stuff like that, we spent some time preparing. Um, so yeah, things like an intro, things like a bank of stories for behavioral questions. So like questions of the form, tell me about a time when X, right? And
Yep.
you want to be making those up either. You want to have stories ready to go that sort of address each of the um, common things that they might ask about. So we worked on that. Um, yeah, probably some other stuff that I'm not remembering, but yeah, that stuff was also part of the prep. Um, right. Okay. Oh, and another big thing that I forgot to mention during this whole process, like once we turned on the auto apply tool, or maybe even before, there is a tool on the ApplyPass website, or a tab that's called courses, or register for courses. I can't remember. It shows you a calendar with all these classes that you can sign up for, that are mostly data structures and algorithms classes. Um, I remember one called System Design Office Hours, which um, I probably should have attended more of those, um, but yeah, these classes are taught by actual engineers at usually at pretty big reputable companies. Like you guys hire in some very good people that teach these classes, and uh, so those were also super helpful for passing the coding interviews. Um, so they're divided by topic. So each of the sort of common um, categories that interview problems can fall into has a dedicated class. So these are like 90-minute sessions where you go over examples and do some practice problems. Um, and it's an interactive session. There's a group of maybe like anywhere from like 3 to 10 or sometimes more students with one um, engineer teaching, and we're all kind of discussing the the problems and the concepts, um, and uh, so it's a great place to ask questions, clarify misunderstandings, and just generally practice and hone these skills. So that I was doing a few classes a week, um, and that really helped me with the coding interviews. I mean, there were coding interviews where um, they put the problem up on the screen, and I realized very quickly that it's one that I just did in the class that I did with ApplyPass, and I remember the approach exactly, and like that was, I mean, that felt like a huge advantage. Um, so um, yeah, that was also a great way to prep. Uh, yeah.
And then, as you were getting deeper and deeper into the rounds, you'd mentioned you had some like design ones that come up, which were kind of like blockers of sorts. And then what do we do to try to like help you at least be as prepared?
Yeah. So okay, right. So system design was a big problem for me because again, the system design is like, it's kind of a senior software engineer type of thinking, right? The more junior engineers, uh, you know, understand algorithms, how to write code, um, but the bigger picture of how an entire system, a distributed system, actually works, and what problems you can run into, that stuff. Um, I just I never thought about any of that. I had no idea. I watched a few system design interviews. I had no idea what they were talking about. There's so many acronyms that I had to look up, and I like, yeah, a lot of new concepts. Um, but okay, so a couple things that you guys did helped with that. Um, One was the system design office hours, which I mean, I hadn't realized how important this topic is for certain roles, especially because I was applying to kind of more senior roles. And so I I probably, looking back, something I would do differently was attend more of those sessions. But the ones that I did attend, I did learn some valuable concepts. Um, so that was one thing. Another thing was um, you actually connected me with another coach for private like one-on-one mock interviews, mock system design interviews. Um, so so I guess this network of coaches that you have, they teach classes, but they also do these one-on-one things. And that wasn't something that like cost extra. Like you just set that up for me when I said I'm struggling with system design. You said, okay, I'm going to put you in contact with this person. You're going to do some mock interviews. Um, and that was also really helpful. The one-on-one attention, that's sort of personalized, and they can tell you, okay, you know, here's specifically what you need to work on, um, and we're going to practice it right here in this like simulated setting. Um, that was extremely helpful.
And that was targeted too towards your domain, right? Because I think I tried to put you to someone in.
Yes, right. The specific coach that you connected me with was a machine learning and AI engineer. And it was more than that. He would, before we met, or before we would meet for the mock interview, he would want to know, okay, what's the role, what's the company, so that he could be prepared with an appropriate, practice interview question that is targeted for you know, what we can expect from the actual interview based on the company and the role. Um, so yeah, that was also extremely valuable.
And so you want to talk through a little bit about sort of like, I guess, sort of the end stages, Josh, of the process for yourself here, because you were doing all these final rounds and maybe kind of like how things started to line up and play out, and yeah, more specifically, I guess, sort of the end stages, yeah.
So so you mean like negotiating the offer
Yeah,
and
because
sort of
you had a few things that kind of lined up at the end, right? And part of what we were trying to
yeah
do was strategize aligning as many different final rounds in succession as possible, so you had options and hopefully leverage. Yes.
yeah yeah, and it got kind of messy because okay, so so what happened for me was I guess I can say the companies, right?
Yeah.
So I got an offer from the AI team at Lenovo. Um, in it's January 2026 right now. I got this offer. I think it was like beginning
November.
of December.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
and um, uh, and I mean, so okay, so it's it's been like 3 or 4 months, and I finally have an offer. That felt great. That was a huge like relief to finally have that. But then around the same time, uh, there was, or like a week later, I think there was an offer also from a small AI startup called Kung Fu AI. Um, and of course, being a startup, their offer was not quite as enticing as the Lenovo offer. Um, but okay, now there were some things that were better about it. So it was sort of in a way I could use that as a bargaining chip with Lenovo, and at the same time, there were ongoing interviews. I was in the middle of the process or like headed into the final round with some other companies. So, for example, I was headed into a final round with NVIDIA. I was headed into a final round with PayPal, um, and at least one other.
Zooks, there was Datadog
Oh, yes.
too that was in here.
Oh, right. Zoox and Datadog. Right. Okay. So there's still these other things going on, and what I was able to do, um, with uh, uh, guidance from you on exactly how to navigate this was essentially use all of these things as leverage in negotiation with Lenovo. So so this other offer that I already had in hand, um, was very powerful. Even though the numbers themselves of that offer were not competitive with Lenovo. So you help me understand. You don't have to say that. You can highlight the parts of it that are better. So, for example, that other one, the from the AI startup, was fully remote. The Lenovo offer was hybrid. So that's a big bargaining chip, or a big thing that I can say to get them to increase their offer. Um, so things like that, and these other ongoing interview processes with companies that if they give me an offer, were likely to be better than Lenovo's offer. Those the way that I told Lenovo about them was, okay, I've got these other companies. I'm headed into final rounds. Things look good. I will cut those off if you increase the offer by whatever amount. I don't think we need to get into details unless you want to.
You can if you want. I
So
think, yeah, app numbers are great. Whatever you want to share.
yeah, sure. So yeah, so the initial offer that I got from Lenovo was two. It was 220. Um, I guess for comparison, the job that I left was paying me 168. And I was just looking. My goal was anything over 200. Um, and so the first offer I get from them is 220 base. Um, they don't do equity, um, but they do have a bonus, like a 12% bonus. So this brought it up to like 240 something. Um,
46-ish.
and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, and I was really happy about that. But you reminded me, Josh, you never take the first offer. You can get more.
There's always money
Um,
on the table. Yes.
yeah. Um, uh, so yeah, so by negotiating and using the leverage of like this other offer and these other interview processes that are about to go into final round and could result in big offers, um, I got them to add on a $20,000 signing bonus and increase the base by 10,000. So uh, that I mean, it was already an offer that I really liked, um, and then it just got better, because I had good advice from somebody who understands the strategy to be using. But the reason I said it got messy is because, I mean, even after I had okay, so I mean, maybe this isn't so relevant, but even after I had accepted this offer from Lenovo, um, uh, you know, uh, they didn't actually get back to me with the improved offer until after I had gone into the final rounds with these other companies. So I'm basically like um, still interviewing with other companies, while I'm finalizing um, the offer with Lenovo. And then I accept the offer, but then and we turn off the auto apply, but then the responses from companies that I applied to before I accepted the Lenovo offer are still coming in, even though the tool has been turned off. So I'm still getting interviews, but I've already accepted an offer. And I like Lenovo's a good company. I've been working there a month now. I like it, but if there are still other companies that I wanted to work for more, and those companies were sending me messages about interviews after I've already accepted this offer, and you know, I decided that I'm going to keep going, right? Because the worst that happens is I get an offer from that I like more from a company that I like more, and I have to have an awkward conversation with Lenovo saying like, "Hey, I know that my start date is coming up, and I've already accepted this offer," or if it happens a little later, I just started a couple weeks ago, but uh, I'm moving on. And that would be a difficult conversation, but at this point, I was very confident in my interview skills with all the practice of these hundreds of reps that I'd done over the last few months. Um, I was I was pretty confident in my ability to interview well. Now those didn't work out, just because this is a chance thing, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. Um, but uh, uh, having the confidence uh, to go into these interviews and know that I can do well and possibly get an even better offer than I already had. It just felt really good. Um, and it was a huge contrast to the way I felt at the beginning of this process, which was like, I just had, I was skeptical, honestly, until the end, until I actually got an offer. Um, like my confidence was growing slowly, but in the back of my mind, I was still like, okay, well, I've gotten these final round interviews. I keep, four in a row. I'm not getting offers, right? Like there's something missing here. Like uh, kind of in my mind, I thought, all these interviewers, these senior engineers are kind of seeing through me. They're seeing my inexperience very clearly, even though I have sort of trained myself to, or been trained by you to, to, um, to present myself as experienced and skilled as possible. They're seeing through it, right? So I remained very skeptical until the end. But then once I got that offer, um, I was like, oh wow, okay, maybe this is possible. Maybe I can get another one, right? So I kind of kept
Yeah,
going,
a
and it got
little better than I thought I was, and also
yeah,
see my potential, right? Even if it's not the exact thing they need now, they know that I'll be able to learn it and pick it up quickly.
exactly. And so, okay, yeah. So hopefully somebody watching this is in a similar situation where, like, you know what kind of job you want, you know what you're interested in, but in reality, you're not a very strong applicant for that role because there are a lot of other applicants who have much more relevant experience. Um, and and sometimes, yeah, sometimes that will cost, a lot of times that will cost you the role. But there are hiring managers out there who understand that uh, it can also be very beneficial to hire somebody with a lot of potential and not just focus on hiring people with specific skills, um, because specific skills can be taught. Um, but somebody who has um, the drive, the raw intellectual power, and the ability to work independently, um, and just the interest, is a valuable asset to a team. And there are hiring managers out there who will take a chance on you if you demonstrate that you are willing to put in the work to learn the field, um, and learn the skills that you need. Um, and if you're a good communicator, come in there and you explain your experience and how you think that it can transfer to what they are doing. Um, and uh, so there's not a lot of them, but they are out there. And if you do enough interviews, you will find somebody who's willing to take a chance on this person who doesn't have the exact experience they're looking for, but has potential. So that's, I mean, that was eye opening for me.
You met at least one of them, right? So,
Yeah. Yep.
um, so ultimately, Josh, yeah, accepting Lenovo, and I didn't realize that those were like the end numbers. So, like the first year total comp gain on your previous role was what, 110K, just about?
Um, yeah. So the final Lenovo offer, so uh, base plus bonus. And by the way, the way they do bonuses there, it's the 12% is an on target bonus. So that's like if you personally or your team reaches its goals and the company reaches its goals, you get 12%. It could be more than 12% or less than 12%. And I looked up what people, current employees say about this, and they say, yeah, it's generally 12%. Like you're not going to get stiffed. So I sort of just include that in
Yep.
the total because I mean, everybody that works there says, yeah, you get 12%. So it's close to 260. Um, and yeah, my previous role was 168. So yeah, almost 100K
What's the signing
increase.
bonus put you over, right? At least for the first year.
Oh, yes, for first year. Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So I mean that's more than I mean, that's beyond what I thought was possible at the beginning of the process. So yeah, um, and very much, you know, the money that I paid for this service, you know, it paid for itself, right? Obviously. Um, so, and I mean that was the goal. And yeah, I'm really glad it worked out. And it's a great program that you have, and I'm very thankful for it. And I'm thankful that you found me because I was never going to find you. Um,
We have our ways of finding folks, right? So,
yeah,
um, and I guess, yeah, Josh, like with that, then anything specifically that surprised you, hopefully in like a good way in working together through this process?
yeah. So one thing that stood out to me, and that, you know, when people asked me about this when I was going through it, I made sure to mention this, and obviously I'll mention it now, was how dedicated you personally are to your clients. Um, you know, there were times when uh, I would just message you with, you know, this whole process is like, it happens very quickly. There's a lot going on. You know, I'm doing multiple interviews every day. There's a lot going on. Things can happen fast. And there can be times when, like, there were times when I needed to consult with you about something on very short notice. And so I could just send you a message on Slack and say, hey, can you talk today? And almost always we would end up talking like in an unscheduled meeting that night on Zoom. And I could, you know, share with you whatever was happening and get your input, which was always very helpful. So like just how available you are and how dedicated you are to the success of your clients, um, despite having, I mean, I don't know how many people you work with at a time, but I got the sense that over those last few months it was, yeah, you were just kind of going nonstop. um, and so the fact that I had that level of access to you, um, was extremely helpful and did surprise me. um, so yeah, that's what I would say was surprising in a good way.
All right. Well, I'm glad that that was surprising in a good way. Obviously, I want everybody to succeed here, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, like last question, Josh, for you. I mean, as you mentioned, like, and as folks probably know if they're watching this, the investment in working, you know, together through the platinum coaching with ApplyPass, not exactly non-trivial. So anything you
Mhm.
want to share for folks that are maybe like considering working with us, they're on the fence, that might help them move in the direction of, yes, this will actually be beneficial to my career, and I'm going to see, I mean, in your case, you got what, like almost like 10x ROI on like at least first year total comp gain. And that's just like,
Oh
what?
yeah, I mean the amount that I paid for to join this program now, like, you know, feels like a trivial amount now, given the increase in pay that I just got, um, which, I mean, that's not a one-time payment. That's like
That's
for
that's
however
your
long
floor
it
now, by
was.
the way. That's your floor, right?
Right, exactly. And uh, yeah, like this program just pays for itself, basically, um, is the point. And uh, yeah, so if somebody who is like as skeptical as I was, yeah, I mean, David, you told me at the beginning of this that like I was one of the most skeptical people that you have had to sort of convince that this is worth it. Um, you know, I was really, um, I was getting pretty frustrated, and I was looking for some way to make something work. And I was like, all right, you know what, I'll go for it. But uh, you know, I think that if I can do it, most people can do it. Like I can't stress enough how actually under, okay, I know you're gonna tell me that this is not a good way to think, but like, you know, we've had this discussion many times. I still think that I'm very underqualified for most of the jobs that I was applying to, and even job that I got. um, and but that it doesn't matter because once you're there, um, you you learn and you grow into the role. And getting there, getting your foot in the door, is just a matter of um, mastering the interview process, which is just a matter of practice, which is what you guys that's what you guys do for people. You give us a way to practice in a large volume of interviews with this ApplyPass tool. So um, yeah, I don't know what else to say other than like I was very skeptical. It worked. I would do it again every time. Like I don't know. It just the numbers speak for themselves.
And I guess if you hadn't signed up, Josh, where do you think you'd be right now?
Well, yeah. So we didn't get into why I was leaving my previous company, but where I'd be right now is um, probably trying to do interviews, not getting very many of them, and performing very poorly in them, and getting very stressed out about how I don't want to be at this company anymore, and I feel like I don't know what to do. Yeah, I felt pretty trapped, and Apply Pass was kind of my way out. Um, so yeah,
And it worked pretty much like I said it would, right? Like I was saying at the start, I said, you don't believe me, that's fine. Just wait.
yep, yep. No, and I mean, there's nothing else to say. You were totally right.
It's almost like
Um,
I've done this a few times, right? So
yeah, it's exactly. So yeah, I'm very satisfied with the service that I received and the outcome, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who is looking for a job in tech.
awesome. Well, thank you very much, Josh, for your time here this evening. It was honestly a pleasure working with you. I knew you were going to succeed in roughly the timeline that it was going to take. And I know that the next job search you do, whenever that might be, you're going to succeed even more, honestly, right? You already know the game now. You know the gaps you need
Yeah,
to
yeah,
fill
that's the other thing. That's the
in.
other thing. When you finish this program, you have the skills that you learned for the rest of your career, right? That just keeps on giving, right? The next exactly like the next interviews I do, I'm going to remember all the skills and methods that I learned working with you.
Yeah, and that's just going to pay dividends down the line, right? It always
Mhm.
does. All right, Josh, we'll appreciate your time this evening here. I'm sure we'll be in touch. You're still part of the alumni group, so please don't be a stranger.
Of
And
course.
yeah, obviously, wishing you the best. And I think that's it.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, David. And yeah, it was a pleasure working with you.